What is the best training split? This has to be one of the most commonly asked questions on my Q&As. I'm not sure if it's just me or if other online coaches have noticed the same thing. So I will be going over the more popular training splits, my experiences with them, what I like and what I dislike. The first training split that I will be going over is the, let's just say, the standard body part split, where you're hitting one muscle group per day. So that might be, actually that is usually chest on Monday, maybe back on Tuesday, legs on Wednesday, and then however they like to break up their shoulders and their arms. I like this because, number one, by hitting a muscle group the whole session, you're probably going to get a pump at least once during the session. That might be the first exercise, the second, the third. The second reason I like this is because it's generally somewhat time efficient. Because you're hitting the same muscle group, you're using the same joints, you're using the same muscles, you likely will not have to warm up again and again between exercises. You might have to do a specific warm-up before the session, but throughout the session, you can probably afford to just be doing warm-up sets and then going straight into your working weight. This is also fairly good if you're not the best at gauging fatigue. If you beat yourself up so much in one session, it's okay, because by 1 week, you're probably recovered and ready to hit it again. Now, for the downsides, I don't really like doing this because there's really not much balance. Most people just split it up into something like chest and then back and then legs, as in legs combining both their hams and their quads and their calves and their glutes. And then they're gonna do a separate day for their shoulders, and then they're gonna do arms. At least in most cases. I mean, I haven't done this in a while. If your body part split has changed over the years, let me know in the comments. But yeah, I mean, it just doesn't seem so balanced to me because, say, your chest, it's a fairly small muscle group with not a lot of different functions. So by doing a press, you're probably hitting most of it, as opposed to your legs, which are, you know, obviously your quads are different from your hamstrings altogether. So if you're mixing them up in one session, you're probably underworking them a bit, or at least compared to your chest. So the drawback there is you will likely have a good chest, some big arms, but a fairly lagging back, and most likely small legs. Another reason that I don't like doing this is that because you are hitting the same general muscle group for the entire session, your fatigue does build up. So you might be getting some good quality reps, some good sets on your first 2 exercises, but by the time you get to 3, 4, 5, I know some people do 8 or 9, which really doesn't make sense to me. But what you see is often quality of reps deteriorates throughout the session, which is rarely good. And honestly, if you get sloppy towards the end, you do risk injury. Of course, the other reason why I've generally stayed away from this split is because I do feel like you could be training each muscle group a little bit more often. I mean, going back to our favorite first day, if I do hit chest on a Monday, I'm usually ready to go by maybe Wednesday, maybe Thursday, at the latest Friday. So I'm not sure if I want to wait all the way into next Monday to hit the same muscle group again. The next training split I'll be covering here will be a push-pull leg split. So push being your chest, your front, maybe your lateral delts and your triceps. Pull being all of your back, plus your rear delts and your biceps. And legs being your entire lower body. So that's quads, your hams, your calves, your glutes, maybe your abs, maybe your lower back, but that will depend on the person. I do run this around, well, most of the time, I would say. Because if, for example, you are training 6 days a week, you're going push-pull legs, then you are able to hit just about every muscle group twice a week, which does seem to be the sweet spot for most lifters. I do find this to be more forgiving in terms of fatigue during a session, in terms of maintaining technique, maintaining quality, at least compared to your standard bro split, because you're generally, or at least you should be, hitting less exercises per day for each single muscle group. But at the same time, because it is using, again, similar muscle groups, you sort of minimize the need for very complicated warm-ups. Now with this split, I personally don't see a lot of drawbacks, except that I think too many people try to force it to be push-pull legs, forcing themselves to train 6 times a week, which isn't usually the most sustainable thing to do. Another common issue is that, similar to your bro split, and especially if you're pushing intensity, if you're pushing volume, is that your movements towards the end of the session will likely suffer quite a lot as well. Definitely not as much as a bro split, and this also applies to basically every split, but it's just something you might want to consider. Now let's move on to the next training split, the upper-lower split, which is likely the least common out of the ones I'm going to discuss. So an upper-lower split is actually very straightforward. You're hitting everything from the waist up on your upper body days and everything from the waist down on your lower body days. I feel like this is the least common one because most people just don't really want to train legs that much. But I have tried it, and I think I ran it early on, doing an upper-lower split for 6 days a week. So that goes upper, lower, upper, lower, upper, lower. And looking back, that might have been one of the most fatiguing splits I could have ever done. I was actually hitting legs seriously on each of those days, doing squats, deadlifts, leg presses, maybe some lunge variations, calves, leg extensions, and leg curls 3 times a week. So it's super fatiguing, and the main drawback there is your upper body might come out lagging, but this leads to 2 potential advantages. And the first one being that your legs will grow. Like, there's really no way around it. If you're taking an upper-lower split for 6 days in a week, actually even 4 days, and you're taking it seriously, you're doing all the movements right, you're getting your intensity down, there's really no way your legs aren't gonna grow, at least relative to your upper body. And the second reason I like this is that it does seem to be helpful with lower body strength. So in terms of technique proficiency, this helps build it quite fast. Now let's move on to the last one, which is a full body split. I feel like this is commonly misunderstood, but I will talk about it in a way that most people understand full body splits. So a full body split meaning you're hitting practically every muscle group per day. So you're hitting your chest, your shoulders, your back, your legs, and your arms. Now the common issue here is that most people really legitimately try to fit every muscle group in a single day. Personally, I like to do it as maybe 1 to 2 push, 1 to 2 pull, 1 to 2 lower body things, and 1 or 2 upper body accessories. And I think a lot of people are scared of it because they think they have to train legs hard every day, but that's not really the case, I would say. I think what you can do instead is you could be doing a quad exercise, maybe like a squat on your first day, maybe some hamstrings on your second day, could be doing some calves on the third day, maybe something like a leg extension or a leg curl on the next days. Which means each muscle group shouldn't be equally fatigued for every training day. I do like running something like a full body split, especially when I've taken some time off, some time away from training, or at least some time from structured training. Hitting a muscle group often but not too hard kind of helps me relearn different techniques for different movements. And honestly, by not beating yourself up so much on each session, at least for each muscle group, you're actually not going to be too sore coming into the next session to hit the same muscle again. Especially if you're using an easier exercise or a slightly different movement pattern. As for the disadvantages, I'm not really sure if this counts, but you don't really get a pump from each session like you would with the other splits. Personally, I don't really worry about that because I do think getting a pump or requiring yourself to get a pump every session is overrated and unnecessary. That is just something to consider because after a while, training full body can get somewhat boring. It can get somewhat repetitive when you're hitting the same muscle group every day or almost every day. Just to clear things up, doing full body splits doesn't mean you don't get any rest. You could pick any one of those training days and just let your single muscle group rest. Another potential disadvantage of running something like this, something like a full body split, is that because you are hitting different muscle groups, you are using different muscles, which means you might need to warm up a little more in between exercises. So which one is the best training split? This might be somewhat anticlimactic, but I do think it's none of them and all of them at the same time. They do all have their advantages, they do all have their disadvantages, and it will likely depend on how much you enjoy doing a certain split. If you enjoy doing a bro split because you're getting nasty pumps, that's fine. If you like doing an upper-lower split because you just enjoy training your legs, that is great too. So the split that you can stick to consistently will likely be the most effective one. As for my personal take on this, I think my best training split would be the one that allows me to train each muscle group with enough intensity without sacrificing any quality and with enough room for recovery. So I've actually been doing a lot of more experimental stuff. I have settled recently with a push, legs, pull, rest, lower, upper, and then rest, which has been great because I do only like training 5 times a week. If I try to push for 6, I do get kind of banged up. For a 5-day training week, something like that, push, pull, legs, upper, lower, does seem to work. I also enjoy doing something structured like a push, pull, legs split, where you're doing the accessory work on the next day. So that might be something like push with some leg accessories, pull with some push accessories, and legs with some pull accessories. I've also enjoyed doing something like a push-pull legs full body hybrid, which is more like you're doing push-pull legs, but you're also doing a pull exercise and a leg exercise on your push day. Makes it a full body day. And then you do the same with the other sessions of the week. For most of my clients who also train 5 days a week, I also find it kind of nice to be doing something like an upper-lower upper split, which does give you more volume for your upper body and 2 days for your legs. So these 3 or these 4 have been sort of my staples in terms of splits, at least in recent time. I change them a lot, I play around a lot, and the biggest thing I've learned is that you really don't need to constrain yourself within these so-called popular training splits. So feel free to play around, to experiment, to find yourself a split that works for you and a split that you enjoy. If some of my explanations were incomplete, didn't make sense, or were outdated, just feel free to leave a follow-up question in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.